I was just in Aurora, Colorado. And actually, that's not true. I was in Columbine, Colorado, right near it. And there was a woman that showed up there, and you could hear this on the Charlie Kirk exclusive, members.charliekirk.com. And she was nearly in tears. We had this amazing event. It was in the Columbine, Littleton area, southwestern Denver. And she says, Charlie, when we were out to dinner one night, 6 Tren de Aragua people came in and completely burglarized their house, took everything, and did some really, really graphic, terrible things that I can't even share on air. Thankfully, no one was hurt. No one was there. FBI showed up, and the FBI agent who showed up had they, them pronouns on their business card. They, them pronouns was the FBI agent. The FBI agent called back and said, sorry, your stuff will never be found, and basically you should stop trying. This is happening all across the country. Play cut 28.
Police have now detained 14 people in reported armed home invasion. That's the same apartment complex where a lot of people were complaining about the armed Venezuelan gang members roaming the halls. Reports indicate that investigators said that several suspects entered the apartment and had 2 people inside. The suspects then reportedly moved the victims to another apartment complex, or rather another unit on the property where police said they were found threatened and bound. An adult man sustained a non-life-threatening stab wound. At the moment, police say it's unclear if the suspects are connected to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, but we'll get a live report in Colorado 30 minutes away. And
I think Tom Homan should do Aurora first. I think as soon as we get sworn in, Tom Homan should set up a operating center in Aurora. I think he should have a command center in Aurora. I think he should have the whole thing, and just make this the test case. Bring everyone in and get it done. I think Tom Homan's sending 2 weeks in Aurora. I'm gonna recommend this at America Fest when I see him. Get sworn in, all the inauguration stuff, fly out with ICE, fly out with DHS, ground zero, all the cameras going, national press conference, and say, there's a new sheriff in town, and make Aurora the test case. And we want perp walks of every single one of these criminals. Some of these gangs are like a trained militia, and our people are ready to go. Our government officials are ready to go. Apartment complex by apartment complex, unit by unit, liberate the city of Aurora. And perp walks, we want to see the pictures of every one of these thugs on cable TV. What is cable going to say? By the way, as a first Aurora, what are they going to say? Oh, they're going after these little girls. No. These are enemy gangs occupying our country. I think Aurora should be the first visit for the new administration. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Is it conceivable that the Trudeau government could collapse? Joining us now is a great patriot and freedom lover, Viva Fry. You can find Viva on Rumble, host of Viva Fry on Rumble. Viva, great to see you again. Viva, what's going on with Mr. Trudeau? Is his government falling apart?
Whether or not it falls apart, it's been on the verge. Like, there's been talk that, there's been calls for him to step down. Canada's heading into an election season, whether it likes it or not, in 2025. But like the breaking news of yesterday, where people thought yesterday was the day, is that yesterday they were supposed to table their budget to account for the spending for the next year. And Chrystia Freeland, who you all know, she goes by many nicknames. Some call her Twitchy McGee because in every video she's like bouncing around like a possessed troll. But she was the Minister of Finance. And she was supposed to table the budget, which was supposed to announce something of a deficit of like $40 billion. And 2 hours before they were supposed to table it, she resigns. And apparently whoever was supposed to replace her by law refused to take the position. And so there was no minister of finance for a certain period of time. But she puts out a letter that is a scathing rebuke of Justin Trudeau about how, in light of Trump's threat for a 25% tariff, they no longer see eye to eye. She was offered another position in the cabinet, and she said, "No, I'm better off just stepping down." And then they spent the entire day, like a bunch of clowns in Parliament, arguing back and forth as to whether or not they should just basically trigger another election, because it's clear Justin Trudeau has lost control of his own government. So there were calls for him to resign, as there have been for a while, but his government's in shambles, period. And the only question is what's going to happen. They're recessing for Christmas. There was talk as to whether or not he might prorogue, which is end the session, and then start a new session in the new year, or whether or not there's just going to be a no confidence vote, and they're going to trigger an election earlier than what would be the legally required limit in 2025 anyhow.
Wall Street Journal writes, Justin Trudeau nears the end in Canada. By the way, we tweeted this out on X, and then people were mocking at first. Turns out we were a little ahead of the curve. Our Canadian sources are very good. So just kind of educate our audience here, because every country has different setups. What is the current composition of how you form a government in Canada? And get even more elementary than that. What do you have to do what does it mean to form a government? Educate our American audience, please.
Hopefully I'm not going to screw this up, because I think at this point I know more about American politics than Canadian. It's a parliamentary system. Every 4 years you have an election by law. And we have a multi-party system. It's not like a two-party system. And so basically throughout all of these 338 ridings across Canada, you vote for a party, and then whichever party gets the majority or the most votes, because you could have a minority government, which is what Trudeau has had since 2021, they basically elect their leader. So you don't elect a president or you don't elect a prime minister directly in Canada. It goes by a party system where you vote for the party appoints their leader, and that's the prime minister. We've got many parties, so it's not a two-party system, but it's sort of effectively a two-party system. You got your Liberals, your Conservatives, what they call the NDP, that's Jagmeet Singh's party, the New Democrat Party, which are, even more fascistic in many ways than the Liberals. Then you got some smaller parties, the Green Party. We've actually got a Marxist party. I think we've got a Pop party. We've got the Bloc Québécois, which is a federal party. Means like it's federal, like the federal government here, representing basically the interests of Quebec as a province to separate from the federation. So you have an ironic sort of federal party that the goal of which is to pull the province out of the federation. And you have your elections every 4 years, unless what we have is called a non-confidence vote, where basically the government says we no longer have faith in this particular government, trigger an election, and see if a government or a party can eke out more of a minority or more of a majority position. So by law, every 4 years, there's going to be an election, and they have to have one in 2025 regardless. They could have, or I should say the system could have called a non-confidence vote anytime since 2021, but there has been something of a de facto coalition between the NDP, which is left of the Liberals, and the Liberals, which has been maintaining this Liberal minority government in power since 2021. By the way, Charlie Kirk, I ran in 2021 for the People's Party of Canada in my riding Westmount NDG, which went Liberal, by over 50 some odd percent. That's the basics. It's not a presidential system. You don't elect a prime minister. You elect a party that then appoints the prime minister, and you can have the party say, we no longer have confidence in this government, trigger a new election, which they haven't done because of this unholy alliance between the two evil parties, the Liberals and the NDP. And what you had yesterday, that people, I don't know if anybody was watching, basically it's like the C-SPAN of Canadian politics, CPAC. You can watch the live debates in Parliament, and it looks like a cheap foreign soap opera at like 3 a.m, where you see the Pierre Poilievre, who's the leader for the Conservatives, bickering back and forth with the Liberals. Why don't you just trigger a new election? And the Liberals are saying, we're going to table a bill, we're going to do good for the government, and yada, yada, yada. And the bottom line is, many people suspect that they are not triggering an election, or at least the NDP, which has coalesced with the Liberals, because some select members of the NDP want to secure their federal pension, and they need to wait for a certain number of years in federal office before they get that pension. And so a lot of them have basically this alliance with the devil to maintain the government until they get their pensions. Then they'll trigger an election when Trudeau and the Liberal Party will get smashed.
So there's so much here to examine. I can't help but ask the obvious American political question here, which is this finance minister resigns. And in the midst of all this, Justin Trudeau decided the day after American Thanksgiving to fly down to Mar-a-Lago to sit down and to kiss the ring of the president-elect after a tariff threat. Is it too far to say that President Trump's tariff threat might have played a role in the disassembling of the Canadian government?
It's putting pressure on it, the Canadian government. There's no question about that, because there is going to be financial consequence if there's a tariff war, or if there's a tariff imposed. It's not going to be a war when it's a lopsided, uneven fight. There are some people hypothesizing, musing that Trump told Trudeau to get rid of Chrystia Freeland. I don't see it that way, because Chrystia Freeland she's not a threat on her own, and she wasn't a threat in the Trudeau government. What ended up happening is, they threatened this tariff, and Trudeau, because he's in a politically tight spot, he's unpopular like the Liberals have never been unpopular before. And they're deciding to spend their way out of this unpopularity by giving $250 checks. Charlie, appreciate this. The Liberal government just announced they're going to send everyone who makes under $150,000 a year a $250 check. They're going to temporarily suspend certain taxes on certain foods for 2 months in January 2025. And I think what happened is Chrystia Freeland saying, this makes no economic sense. It looks like you're literally buying votes, which is literally what he's doing. And she's covering her own tushy by saying, I'm going to bail out. I'm going to jump this ship like the rat that she is, but I'm going to throw Trudeau under the bus as I do it, because I think everybody knows Trudeau's time in the party as the leader is over. They're all trying to cover their own butts and get ahead of the curve in terms of securing their own reelection. And so she throws Trudeau under the bus because Trudeau is effectively trying to buy the votes to compensate for the political unpopularity of his position vis-a-vis Trump and vis-a-vis America at large. So I don't think Trump made any orders, but the threat of a tariff is causing the Liberals to try to do stupid things to buy their way out of unpopularity and to bankrupt the country even more than they've already done over the last 9 years of their rule.
So I have a question for you personally. Are you going to remain in Florida, or are you going to return back to Canada?
I am. My long-term plan is to stay here. I kind of like it not more than I should. I mean, I love it. And the problem is, I'm very skeptical as to the future of Canada, because you especially once you've escaped that, not the silo, but you've escaped the culture of Canadian politics. You come down to Florida, you come down to the free states of America, and you appreciate a mentality of freedom, a zeitgeist, a spirit of freedom. And it's not to say that it doesn't exist in Canada, but there's too many Canadians who seem to be very happy to define themselves by not being American. And so even on the so-called conservative side, I don't see the conservatives as being the savior to Canadian politics like Trump, MAGA, and the populist movement was the savior to American politics. The conservatives, I don't see them as much different than the liberals. They support endless wars in Ukraine. You got Pierre Poilievre wearing the Ukrainian flag, saying Slava Ukraini, in speeches. You've got the Conservative Party of Canada voting unanimously to support the conversion therapy ban. You've got the Conservatives supporting censorship to a greater or lesser degree, not supporting the trucker protest until it becomes popular, and then throwing them under the bus when it's no longer popular. So I don't see the same spirit on a large-scale populist movement that I see in America. And what's going to happen in Canada is it'll get worse. they'll get a bit of a reprieve with a liberal light conservative government, but the broader population of Canada and the spirit of Canada seems to be very content to define itself as not American, even if it's shooting themselves in the foot by doing it. So that's a very long-winded answer to say I like the spirit of Florida.
Last political question. Do you think a similar red wave that we've seen in America is possible in Canada?
It'll be the blue wave. No, hold on. Which one is it? The Liberals are red, Conservatives are blue. So it's actually inverted in
You
Canada.
know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
A right-wing wave.
If you consider conservatives to be right-wing, you will see that in the next election. And this, I ran for the People's Party of Canada. It's even more libertarian, more constitutionalist than the Conservatives. I don't know if I consider conservatives conservative, but you will see that wave. Then the only question is, what is that wave going to mean? That wave is going to mean liberalism at the speed limit. What might happen, and I think what needs to happen
I
is...
love that.
Well, it's not even mine. I think
that.
it's Michael Malice's. Or is it yours, Charlie? Someone said...
No, it's not mine.
Okay, I think it's Michael Malice, but they said basically, conservatives are liberals driving the speed limit. So I think what happens is there will be an election, and by the looks of it, it might be sooner than later. There will be a conservative landslide to some extent, and then it's going to require some People's Party of Canada, PPC voices, to get that Conservative Party to get truer to its form, truer to its roots, to get back and respect gun rights in Canada, because what we've seen right now is sort of even the Conservatives are not fighting for gun rights. They're not fighting for self-protection rights. They're not, we'll see that. So you get a Conservative Party in power, mitigate the damage, and then get some sane constitutionalist voices to hold the Conservatives' feet to the fire. That's the way I see it playing out in the long run. The only question is is Trudeau's government over now? Are they going to trigger an election in early 2025? Or are they going to eke out their pensions and wait until September, October 2025?
Viva, plug your stuff for our audience, Viva, whatever you want to plug right now.
Well, Viva Fry, as you can see, but vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where I am with Robert Barnes, and we have an amazing community there.
Yeah, Robert is
law,
amazing.
Politics.
Great man.
He's an encyclopedia of the brain. But if you Google my name, you'll find all links everywhere. But Viva Fry or vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
You do great, Viva. Thanks so much. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.